And hello today. How is everybody doing? Who's freezing? I'll turn the air on if you want me to. Huh? Don't you like it cold? No. So thank you. This is the last second Saturday of 2019 because we have the holiday season coming up, and this presenter today is obviously going to be very, very busy. And we've been trying to get these people here to do this presentation for a long time, and we finally nailed a good date down because they didn't have Santa school and they didn't have all this other stuff. But a little piece of history is going to be happening real soon. How many remember the F.P. Horak building that just came down? Mm-hmm. All right. How many remember what was on top of the F.P. Horak building?
I do, and I know where it is.
What was on top of the F.P. Horak building?
Santa.
Santa and a sleigh, right? Okay. Well, I've got two board members sitting here from the museum, and they don't even know this is happening either. Where is the Santa and a sleigh right now, Mike?
Hiding behind the old waterworks.
Behind the old waterworks?
Yeah, out by the beach.
Really?
Well, it was yesterday or the day before.
It was yesterday or the day before. All right, so little you're going to hear it first here today. You're hearing it first today, okay? And nobody knows this but me and somebody else. And now you, okay? So within about a week and a half, when you come across the bridge, you look at the back of our building, okay? If you saw the back of our building, there's the barrel roof, which we're under right now, and then the back where the cookies are, there's a flat roof. That's where the Santa and the sleigh is going to be put.
Awesome.
So we're going to be mounting it on top of the museum. Mike and Steve are looking at me going, "What?" It's a piece of history. As long as you don't have to do it, you're fine. It's a piece of history, and we're going to be adding more history to this building. So, Clements Electric has rewired the whole thing. It was a big mess, and some students from the ISD were helping with it. And so it's going to be added to the back of our building, like I said, within a week or so. So, thank you. So, without further ado, I am not going to introduce these people. I used to carpool every day to Kolb School with Jeff, and Mary Ida would drive us, and we'd all cram into a car and drive to Kolb School every morning and back and everything. And so I'm going to let them introduce themselves, but these are good friends of mine from way back when, and they used to come to our house and everything else. So Jeff and Mary Ida Doan, welcome. Come on up.
First off, it's very exciting to know that Santa will once again have a place to park his sleigh while he's at the Santa house. We were worried when they brought the Horak building down, but that's great news.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome.
Eat it.
Yep. I don't like eating mics. This is a real pleasure to be here today. We're going to talk about something very near and dear to our hearts. I think it's in our blood. It's been a part of my life for over 60 years. His life forever.
I'm glad she didn't give numbers.
The building that we are using for the Santa house was built in 1920, and it was made from logs from the Sterling Lumber Company. And all of these logs are numbered, so heaven forbid, but in the event that we ever have to take that building apart, we could put it back together. And the spikes are like so big. I have 2 of them yet. And it was sitting across the street from the Bay City Times on 5th and Adams. And the EMT, and I don't know what it was used before that, but my recollection is it was the EMTA building. And then in the 50s, it was moved down to the south end of Winona Park. And then EMTA used it there. And then after they closed, the FOP used it for their meetings and storage. And then in 1991, we had Jim Leonard, which was one of my very best Santas, and Kathy Rothfuss worked, and I think they were part of the chamber. I'm not exactly sure what their job was, but they thought it would be neat to have a Santa house because we had Santed for a few years, and they thought it would be nice. Santa was at Gadine's, but they thought it would be nice to have a building that Santa could come and have the children come there. So in '91, they were able to get this building. We went in and cleaned it all out. So '91 was our first season there. And it was fun to decorate. We had very little. We had to rent things from Midland Santa House. We had nothing. And we had a committee of various people that helped us. And I have a collection of Santa and Mrs. Clauses that we put on the tree. And so that was what the tree was decorated in the first few years. And then in 1991 was the first season. We went through 1996. 97 was our last year there. 1996 was the last year that Nate was able to work there. His sight was getting very bad. And he worked, we would bring him in the back door, set him in the chair, and then have the kids come in the front. And so he was able to work for 5 years in that, and he was so proud of this place. And then in 1997, he passed away in May, so we still had it there. They decided that Doubletree Hotel was going to move in there, and they told us we had to move. Can you believe that? We had to move for a hotel. And we were at the south end of 6th, or at the end of 6th Street. That's where we were, where it was. So, 1997, it was raised. This is what the building looked like the years that we were able to use it. It was a beautiful building. And on the top, in later years, we were able to put Santa and the reindeer up on top
By the speakers.
And we had music outside, which we thought, wow, we're really, you know, we're high tech here. But it was fun. There was a Christmas tree in the center, and we had these plastic posts that we put in that we just slid over the top. We wrapped red ribbon around them, and that was our decorations. And then after the season, we took it all down so that it was just a building. We had lots of great volunteers. And there you can see Santa on the end. And then the Lake Guardian was stationed right behind us. And Bob Traxler, who just passed away this week, was the gentleman that got the Lake Guardian to come and park there. And the men on the ship put their own sign. They said, as long as we're here, it's going to be the Santa Guardian, not the Lake Guardian. And they put lights on every year. And the night that Santa arrived to open the Santa house, they honked their horn, tooted their horn, whatever a boat does, and they welcomed us. And they were kind of like our guardian because they watched over that building for us. That was a great crew. Yeah. Then in 1998 is when we had to move it. And so we had to empty the building, and that was a real chore. We rented space from Jimmy Dobson over on Indiana, stored all our things in there, and they put it up on stilts, and it was on stilts all winter. And that year, we were at the Kresge building, at the east end of the store, and it was a long, narrow room, and so we had Santa there, but we had very, very poor turnout. We just didn't have, nobody knew where we were. We had a small sign out on the street, but that was just one year. So it sat like this. Makes my heart ache to see that building sitting up like that. But Laracy movers came in. They were wonderful. They did just so much for us. But all the piles of dirt, and we're getting ready to move it. This was in the spring of 98, 98 it was on stilts, 99 was the move. And it was early to late spring. And I love that picture with City Hall in the back. But that was quite a challenge because all the lights, everything had to be taken off of that bridge. Of course, the bridge was closed for several hours because the house took up the whole bridge. And that was quite a challenge, and it was really something to see this happen. And it was cold that day. I do remember that. Still coming over the bridge. Princess Winona in the background. Seems like it sat up there for a long time. Took forever to get over that center span. Now they're bringing it down the hill that comes down. And that was another challenge because the house was wider than the road, so they had to go up on over the curb. And you can see the lights laying on the ground in front here. But we had quite a few people down there that was watching that move. There it comes. The property where the house is now was, at one time there was a house in it and torn down many years, and that basement was filled with cars, refrigerators, huge pieces of cement, big trees. So it took us in the spring and summer of that year to get it cleared out, cleaned out, hauled away, sand hauled in, and God loves Steve Wirt. He brought his big equipment in and really helped us get this so that we could get the house where it belonged. The big job was, after it got down to the bottom, they had to make this curve come here, and I thought, they're never going to do it. It's going to crash right there. It's going to stay. We're going to have the Santa house at the foot of the bridge. But they had it figured out. Oh, ye of little faith. There it is. It made it, and it's under the bridge, heading for the community center area. You know, this is some of the big equipment that we had in there to get us leveled off, and you can see how thick the trees were. We had a lot of clearing to do because we had to build a barn next to it for storage because we couldn't keep everything in the house. And this took a long time. Mounds and mounds of dirt. And all those trees, I mean, it was about that thick in there before we started cutting things down. So there's the house. It's sitting. We had to put sidewalk in. The bricklayers came in and put a rat wall in for us. And then it had to be lowered onto that area. And there it's sitting. You can see the first part of the barn here we had for storage. After we got the house there, we still had to pour a floor. There were small rooms inside the building that EMTA used for offices and whatever. So before we did anything, we tore all of the small rooms out inside so that we'd have one big room to decorate and it would be easier to get around. We put a bathroom in, poured the floor, had to do all the wiring, the plumbing. Then we had to varnish everything on the inside. And when they tore the rooms out, we kept all that wood and put it in the barn. That way, when we remodeled or added or changed anything, the wood would match. In later years, we got a train, and the trestle is made from that wood. And it's beautiful, beautiful wood. So this is what it looked like the first part of our season. It was no grass, I mean, it was awful. And this was the new sign at the Santa house at that time. Now we're getting some sidewalks. Begix came in and gave us a little bit of landscape. Put a big Christmas tree, or this was the bricklayers too, I think. The landscaping that we have in there is now 20 years old, so it's getting to look kind of shabby. We're getting to the point that we're going to have to start replacing. This is my niece, one of the nieces that helped decorate, and this is when they were inside tearing the walls out. There still wasn't a floor in there. It was a mess. I didn't think we would ever get that place to look like a Santa house. But thank God for our business people, and the city was wonderful. Our volunteers, we just had people just step up and really give us a good hand. These are two of the nieces that have always done the decorating. These are Nate's nieces, they're twins. And they just more or less retired this year, so now the decorating is going to be up to the committee to change or do whatever we have to do. They were magical. I think they laid awake nights thinking, what can we do different? But you can see how rough the walls are there. You know, we still hadn't varnished or cleaned it up yet. We still had the original windows, but it was an old building, so we had to replace the windows for warmth. And this actually was at the original house down in the park. We had to build a fake fireplace and trying to decorate with what we had, but they did a good job. This is the fireplace at the new house. It's stone, and the wood all the way around the fireplace is the wood from within. John is one of our helpers, works there every season. This is a friend of mine that was on the committee, and she makes stuffed toys. And one year we had an exhibit with dinosaurs. They had a dinosaur nest, they were laying eggs, and she made all the dinosaurs, and we had probably every kind there is. Don't ask me to name them, but she does a beautiful job. And this is her sister, Donna Sullivan, who was also on the committee, and she helped a lot. This is Kathy Rothfuss right here in the middle. She and Jim were the ones that said that they thought we should have a Santa house in Bay City. And the elves here, the first few years, I said we had to rent things from the Midland Santa house. Tom Valent, who has that, who now runs Santa School, made all these elves. He made all of the faces, and he made the clothes or went to rummage sales, and they were homely as well. I think they're scary looking, but anyway, and they were animated, and they were doing just exactly what we wanted them to do. This is also in the original building. This is one of the scenes years ago. That was our fake fireplace in the first building. And my nieces and sister-in-law made all these clowns for the tree. And they're blocks of wood, and then they made clothes for them, and that was the theme that year, was the clowns. The old oak kindergarten chair. You could see one of the elves up here on top. It was fun to do this, but you had to have an imagination, and I cook meat and potatoes. That's the extent of my talent. And so I had to depend on everybody else to make it pretty or make it fun or whatever. And we had bookshelves of teddy bears of all kinds. Santa's chair. Tom Valent, the gentleman from Midland, made this chair out of trees from his yard, and we rented that for 2 or 3 years. And then one of our helpers through a season passed away one summer, and his wife bought the chair for us in his memory, and we have a plaque on the back. So we now have our own chair, and it's so old we've had to redo the cushions and everything. Santa had it all worn out. And the chair actually comes apart if we have to. I mean, it's very heavy, but it collapses. The arms come off, and you can make it a little bit easier to carry. Back trying to get the house, and we planted this tree here. My aunt and uncle passed away, so their family bought that tree in their memory, and they decorated it for several years. Now it's huge, and we had to have Clements Electric come in last year with their cherry picker to put lights at the very top. So it has grown, and we still have the mailbox right there at the door. We have since put wrought iron fence all the way around. We have holly bushes on the front and the side. A fence to keep the kids from the railroad area coming in. But we're getting old. This is Jim Leonard. He was the other gentleman that said that it was time to have a Santa house in Bay City for everybody to come. God love him. He was never married, and he had 7, not at the same time, but he had 7 Mrs. Clauses, one right after another. And when we went to Jim's funeral, Father Bessert was the gentleman that did his funeral, and he said, "This is the first funeral that I have ever done that a gentleman had 7 wives and they're all here." Yeah. He was a great, great guy. Lots of fun, good-hearted. And then at the beginning, to open our season, we would, every year now, we come in on the train. The first year, we had, we came in on the fire truck. And then from that time on, Nate never got to work here. But this is my other son, Nate, and he and I came in several years. I retired my red dress 3 years ago. I'm still very active there, but no longer wearing a red dress. And that is a real thrill to come in on that train. One year they had fireworks, and I cried all the way down from where they picked us up until I got to the Santa house. I love fireworks. I was thrilled. And when you come down the tracks and you see all those kids that are so excited and waving and screaming, I mean, it's something that you just don't forget. It gives me goosebumps to even think about it. I did this 57 years, and I don't regret a day. It's great memories. And then Santa said, "What song should we sing next?" And this is another new sign that's still, our sign is yellow now, yeah. This still is another sign, yep. But we always open this Saturday after Thanksgiving, and we're open through December 22nd. That way we don't have to change the lettering on the sign. And we've been fortunate for many years. The first few years we were there, we only had reindeer on the weekend. And then we found the gentleman from Flushing that had herd, and we were able to get them for the whole month. But 3 years ago, in the heat, when this year that it was so hot, he lost his whole herd, and so we were not able to get them. And it is not easy to find reindeer, I'll tell you. And they're so expensive. Last year, we were able to have them 2 Sundays, and we get them from Reindeer Landing in Clare. And I have searched and searched and searched, and they're either busy or they're just too expensive for us. But the kids absolutely love it. I used to have schools come in. I would have a group of children, one group at a time, and I would meet them out in front, and I'd always have apples cut up, and we'd go and feed the reindeer first, and they would come closer to Christmas vacation, so the deer were a little tamer, and the kids absolutely love feeding them apples. And reindeer do not have teeth. They are not going to bite you. They have, it's like hard, not bone, gristle maybe, and so you never had to worry about the kids getting bit. But they sure loved it. And then I'd take them in the house, and we'd take their coats off and let them look around. I'd have everything turned on. And with the building being so old, we took all of the receptacles, the plugs out of the bottom, and there were holes in different places. So we put little mice in all those, and I'd say to the kids, "We've got mice all over this place. See how many mice you can find." Well, that kept them busy for a long time. And they'd come back, "I found 4. Oh, I said, "There's more than that." So they'd go hunt some more, and we probably had 15 or 17, 20, I don't know, mice around. But it gave them something to do. And we had big mice and little tiny ones in the holes, and we just had them all over. And then after that, I would read them a story, then we'd sing a few Christmas songs, and then if the kids had questions about the North Pole or whatever, because I was Mrs. Doan, I was not Mrs. Claus. They always wanted to know, where is Santa? I said, well, I haven't talked to him today. I'm not sure if he's at the mall. He could be at some schools. I'm not really sure, but he won't be here today. But that was a lot of fun, and I would do maybe 7 or 8 groups through the season. Mrs. Anderson had her group there every year for a lot of years. But it was fun. Of course, most of them came from Kolb School, so they were able to walk.
I have to do this. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Oh boy, such wonderful memories we've got, I'm telling you. But anyway, it was just a labor of love. I just, can't believe that the season is almost here again. After we had moved the building, we had, lots of meetings with City Hall. The DNR came in and said we were encroaching on Betts Park. And we said, why has this not been brought to our attention before this? Why do you say encroachment? Well, the park is for children. I said, well, I think Santa House is for children of all ages too. I mean, there really shouldn't be a problem. But like I said, City Hall really went to bat for us and helped us get this dream come true. This is one of our elves. We have a pirate scene, a pirate ship, and this is one of the elves. These poor elves, sometimes they have boas on, we make them girls, and now this one's a pirate. They have no say, we just do what we want with them. And in here we have, it's a wooden house, and it's like a gingerbread house, but we have elves hanging down looking. This guy here now is making s'mores, and we have a fire down here, and he's roasting the marshmallow. And then now, that was like 2 years ago, now he's roasting hot dogs. And down here we have a squirrel and a chipmunk, and they're holding the buns waiting for the hot dog to fall or whatever. And this guy here is chopping wood. We have a raccoon and a skunk on a teeter-totter there, and the raccoon has a clothespin on his nose. There's a log down here that just the beaver tail is sticking out, like he's stuck under the log. These girls have just done fantastic with all of they have an imagination that won't quit. And this is Mrs. Claus's kitchen. We have an old stove, and you can see the cookies and the muffins that are being made. Coffee pot on top, and the rolling pin here. And over here we have a sink with an old-fashioned pump. Well, we have water running out of that, and a big dishpan with Mrs. Claus's dishes in it to be done. This is one of the trees. This rug, I thought I had a better picture. Right after we moved into the big house, it's round, but there was a gentleman that surprised us that did carpeting, and he made this black rug and had a picture of Santa in the middle of it, and on the top he has the Nate and Mary Ida Doan, and then on the bottom it says Santa House. And we had it on the floor in the old building, but I said, I don't want people walking on that. So now it hangs on the wall, so it's not getting dirty. But the girls, I would never think of putting a clown or anything this big on a tree, but They do it and it looks wonderful. Okay, we've got just a slideshow of what some of the things are in the Santa house. I'll see if I can remember how to do this, Nick. This is the mailbox that is still out there, and this is the dollhouse area. The elves are making dollhouses. Have an airplane hanging from the ceiling. This is gift wrapping area. This is where the toys are made, and then it comes down and falls into the sleigh. These bells were downtown Bay City bells probably 40 years ago. That was the decorations downtown. And my cousin worked for the electric company that put those up, and they were going to throw them away. And I said, oh no, we have to have a couple of those. So we've got the Bay City plastic bells in there. See this poor elf? She's a girl. She has a now. Yep. So that's our life at the Santa house. And we are a 501c3. We work solely on donations. We used to do fundraisers. We always worked the pig gig and River Roar, anything that was down in the park, like any of the concerts, we always worked down there. But now that these are River of Time, we had food for a while, but that was a hassle. We had to run electricity halfway down JFK Drive to give us electricity, so we're getting too old to do that stuff anymore. So, but it's been a wonderful experience, and I just can't say thank you enough to Bay City and the Bay County area. They've been so good to us over the years. Does anybody have any questions? Yes,
Do you have a
ma'am.
different theme every year?
Pardon?
Santa house, is there a different theme every year?
There was until like 2 years ago. But now that the girls have retired, hopefully next year, what we tried to do was change like a third a year, because that is a lot of changing. But nothing has changed. I mean, we've tweaked, but not really. But starting next year, we're hoping to get back to, I'm going to get some young blood in there and help me. Yes. Yes.
You say you've been doing it for 60 years, so how did you and Nate get started?
Well, Nate was older than I. He did it before I. We were married in November, the 23rd of November. Got married, went on our honeymoon, came home from our honeymoon. The next day, he started Santaing at Gadine's and all. So I was married a week and widowed for a month. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not, you know. So, you know, is this what married life is going to be? So the following year, I attended Santa school. And I thought, if you can't fight them, join them. And Nate and I were the first couple to ever graduate from the Charles W. Howard School of Santas. And he had gone 3 years before I went. And then we continued to attend. And then in 1966, Mr. Howard, who was the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade Santa, passed away. And it was his wish that we carry on the school. So we had it for 3 years in New York, and then we brought it to Bay City and had it here until '92, and Nate's health started to go down, so we moved it to Midland, to their Santa house, and
They must want you to be done.
I was going to say, I think I just got turned off. I can take a hint. And so we've had it there ever since. But it's been a wonderful life.
Just as a caveat on that, we are very proud that every one of the Santas that go to the Santa house are graduates of the Santa house school, because we want them to be able to know how to talk to children and how to handle tough situations with kids that a guy that you pull out of a hardware department might not be able to help with. So Santa deals with all sorts of family situations, and Santa's got to be on his toes and needs to know how to answer, when to answer, and how to make it so that it's a good experience for the children. So having professionally trained people is essential to our credibility and our success.
So you have your own Santa training then?
Well, at the Santa School, the Charles W. Howard Santa School was originated in 1937, and it's been continuous, yes. And it's in our bylaws that any Santa that works at the Santa House has to be a graduate. So
Where is that training available?
it is, this week, it was the first weekend in October, and we, it's getting so big now, we had it at Midland Center for the Arts is where we hold it, and we cut it off at 300, but we had 285 Santas, and 2 years ago there was 400 and something, but that's way too big. You can't give them personal attention, but now most of the gentlemen that come, we have so much fun. The camaraderie is just fantastic, and they come back year after year after year. We had a Santa from Denmark this year. We have them from Greenland. We've had them from Australia several times. They come from all over the world and every state in the Union. And when we had the school, everybody wore artificial wigs and beards. Now, you walk into the room, 98% of the guys have their own, I mean, it can be, all links. You walk in, and there's 200 Santas sitting in front of you. And in 2010, Nate was inducted into the International Santa Claus Hall of Fame. 2012, I was inducted, and that's held in Santa Claus, Indiana. And I had Jeff go with me, and that was a real thrill. And I was inducted with Mickey Rooney that year. He was Santa's voice in Santa Claus is Coming to Town. He was that voice for many years. And so, I mean, the experiences have been just unreal.
Just to give you an idea too, we typically see between 8,000 to 10,000 visitors to the Santa house during that late November through December. And after they go through the house, we ask that they sign a book on their exit to give us their name, where they're from, and a brief comment of what they thought of the Santa house. And it gives us an idea geographically where we have got people coming from, not only all over the state, but all over the country. A lot of people coming back to Bay City to their roots for the holiday time, love to come down to the Santa house as well. And we have people from days old to 100 years old that still come and love the Santa house. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be a child to love the Santa house. We all have great fond memories, no matter what our age. And to see even the senior people coming in and having great flashbacks and memories, it warms our heart. Mm-hmm. It really is fun to see.
We get a lot of exchange students through the season too, and they'll have their picture taken so that they can send it home to mom and dad. And it's fun to talk to them to learn their traditions, because there are so many of them. You know, we worked in Australia for 3 seasons and taught Father Christmas over there, and their customs are much different. Their Christmas is in the middle of summer. It's hot, no air conditioning. And even their toys, they call them by different names. If a child wants a scooter, it's a pumped-up pusher. It has air in the tires, so it's a pumped-up pusher. And the doll buggies is a pushee if they want a buggy. Lots of children ask for swimsuits and things like that, sunglasses. I mean, much, much different, but it is so much fun just to know these kids what their Christmas is like at home.
Just a caveat on that, of the 3 visits, the people in Australia are not real familiar with Mrs. Claus. So when Mrs. Claus made her first appearance over there, my mom being younger than my dad, the people would ask my dad, "Why did you bring your mother with you?" And her being younger, he didn't let her forget that very often, because that just thrilled him to think that he was bringing his mother along to visit the people in Australia.
They called me Nana Claus, and Nate was never, he always called me the old girl. That's when I got my nickname, was the old girl, because the kids thought I was his mother. But he wouldn't say the old lady. He knew better. But I was the old girl. So, but yes.
Is there a fee to go there? And is the house totally vacant for 11 months out of the year?
It is just closed and locked up. We have shutters to cover the windows for protection, keep the sun out. But there is no charge to get into the Santa house. We have donation boxes, and we do take pictures, and they're developed right there. They're $5, and you can take, as many as, or you can bring your own camera if you want to.
What we get as far as volunteers, we have 4 to 5 volunteers for every session that we're open. And we find a lot of retired teachers that love to come back and see the excitement, but that is one of the wonderful duties that my mom just begs to have chairmanship every year, to get a hold of all these volunteers. And actually, this is the first year that we are moving into this millennial as far as contacting the volunteers prior to them working, either through email or through text, so that we don't have to make follow-up calls all week prior to these people coming to work the Santa house, because you might schedule this in early November and you've got a middle of December. Some people just tend to forget that date that it's happening, so this makes things a little bit easier. But to this point, we really haven't had a big issue finding enough volunteers to keep that Santa house rolling.
Yep, we pay Santa because he's been to school and his outfit is expensive, but everybody else volunteers their hours and days, but it's a wonderful job, really. I mean, the looks on those kids' faces and how thrilled they are, and they get so excited. Of course, you get some that don't want any part of Santa after they've stood in line for an hour. Makes the parents really happy.
Well, and what we do is we have a chair next to Santa. So if a kid really doesn't want to see Santa, we'll put the parent in that chair next to Santa and put the child on their parent's lap, where Santa can still correspond, but the kids feel a comfort level being that close to their parent, so they can still get pictures of the event. Without, the last thing you want is that forced picture of a kid screaming as you're trying to present him to Santa. Well, guess what? Santa's not real excited to see that kid screaming either. So this was a way that we found that they could still interact with Santa and get their pictures in a much less hostile environment.
Even if the child is crying, they're priceless pictures, because they're always fun to make the collage when they graduate, have all these pictures, and here's it. So they're good pictures no matter what. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
What year did you start doing Santa?
1958 I did. Nate started in 53. And it's, like I said, it's just been a wonderful road.
So we want to thank you for doing this. Give them a round of applause.
Thank you.
We've got a little certificate for you, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, because I do have 2 board members here, but they're not going to disagree with me. I was not going to ask the question on how long she's been doing this, 1958, and 50 years is considered historical anywhere you go. If you go to any historical site, they say anything 50 years or older. Obviously, she's been doing this more than 50 years. So I am going to create a section in our permanent exhibit, and I'm going to ask them to give me pictures like this. We're going to create a section for the Santa house here at the Historical Museum.
Thank you.
So we'll have that up and ready for next holiday season, and we're going to work on that between now and then, and we're going to have that as a permanent display here. Okay?
Thanks so much.
All right, thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for coming.
everybody.
Happy holidays to you all.
Yep.
And don't forget to visit the Santa house. Thank you.
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Thank you, boys and girls.